Right. Namaste and welcome everybody to the TAI seminar series. This week we have a topic about the use of AI in analysis of Hollywood movies. And with this topic, we are launching our artificial intelligence for cinema theme. We have a number of projects ongoing in our group involving masters and PhD students and research interns. So today I'll be presenting this with Ren, and Ren is our new PhD student, and this is one of his first PhD projects, and it was an existing project that I was already doing with a group of students, and basically Ren helped me complete this paper. So the topic today is longitudinal abuse and sentiment analysis of Hollywood movie dialogues using LLMs. Ren, you can continue.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Ethan. Thanks for attending my presentation. Today I will introduce this paper. The name is Longitudinal Abuse and Sentiment Analysis using LLMs. And here is a table of contents. I will go into it in detail. Introduction, NLP, and data descriptions. Here to class the acknowledgement. At first, in the introduction, in this paper, we want to reach the large language models such as the Roberta model and Clipper for sentiment and abusive language detection in media laws. Meanwhile, we want to examine how Hollywood movie dialogues have evolved from 1950 to 2024. And I think the most important point is that to compare the abusive content in Oscar and blockbuster movies based on different periods from 1950 to 2024, and exploring the potential reasons behind these differences. Oh, that's all. First, we need to introduce NLP. From here, we can know that this diagram mirrors with different tasks. NLP can help us do the relationship extraction, topic classification, raw language processing, sentiment analysis, and entity extraction. And at the same time, NLP can help us handle text, video, and even audio. And our last goal is to use the LLM and handle different tasks. LLM is a technology based on NLP. Here we can know that what is LLM. This diagram will tell us the workflow of this model, and you can see here it has different text, images, speech structure, data, and 3D signals. And here it also has different tasks: question answering, sentiment analysis, information and extraction, image captioning, and object recognition, instruction following. And my task is to do sentiment analysis and abuse detection. We still need to know how does it work. Here we can look at please look at here. LLM starts with an input count, then tokenization we can get initial embeddings, and a transformer will refine this into context aware embeddings. Last, it will be decoded to produce the final output. Okay, for data descriptions, here we can see two data sets of our films, subtitles and often blockbusters subtitles. We create two data sets by downloading subtitles from websites. The first website is Office Box module, and another website is Open Subtitle. I think at first we need to get the names of the the movies from IMDb. Then we, based on these movies, we download the subtitles from sub websites. And here, real-in data set and a sandwich data set. This data set is for the abuse detection, and this data set, sandwich data set, is for sentiment analysis. I think this data set is very good because it can help us have many different emotions. Because generally speaking, some data sets they just have positive, negative, and neutral. But this data set has 6 or even 7 different emotions. I think it's very good for our result section and visualization. Here are 2 different websites. The first one is box office module, and the next one is open subtitles. They are definitely free, so you can download any subtitles from these websites. This is Kaggle data set. We create 2 different data sets and we combine it. You can search for this name, Hollywood movie subtitle data set. You can log in Kaggle and just search for this name. Then you can download it. I think this data set has many different features such as years, words, and categories, different periods. I think if you want to do some sentimental analysis and build detection, you can download this. I think it will be very good for your results.
Thanks, Ren. I'll take it from here. So, as you can see, Ren, along with the group of students, downloaded and curated this data set. So the idea was to basically have a longitudinal study. What is a longitudinal study? Is you using the statistics and data science to see changes in long periods of time of some entity, some phenomena, and this is why we are kind of looking at the 1950s, from the 1950s all the way to 2020. So we're looking at around 70 years of how the cinema has evolved, particularly, actually, this case study is of Hollywood. But we are going to later have this case study extended to Indian cinema, Japanese cinema, and other Chinese cinema as well. So the thing is like, for this type of projects, you do not have things that are usually handed out to you. You have to go out there and look for data. And that's what we exactly did. So there's open subtitles, and this open subtitle data is usually used. It's available. Some of it is compiled by the movie studio, and sometimes it's user generated as well. So we took data from the open subtitles. We got the list of the Oscar award nominated movies for those years, and the collected we have in this period of around 72 74 years, we have around 1035 movies, right? So you can see there is a lot of movies. I think a lot of people have not seen all of these movies, and as the leader of the group, I would say that these are some very interesting movies, and I have seen a lot of these, especially the Oscar nominated ones. And I would recommend you to kind of see some of these movies if you want to come into our AI and cinema theme in the future. So there are some nitty gritty details that all of the NLP projects as you need to do when you are processing data. So we have in our group worked with various sorts of data, such as text data, where we have got data from Twitter, and it has its own problems, such as you have to process emojis, and some of these slangs, internet slangs. How do you process those things? We have got data, processed data from PDF files from for translation of Sanskrit to English by different LLMs. We are also doing a project in that area, and in this one, we have kind of used some of the code from some of those projects to and extended the code to look into data for subtitles. When you look at subtitles, what we do is see uh, actually in subtitles you have time information, and then you have the words that are said in the movie, right? So uh, you need to split the sentences in several into different words. You have to remove stop words, comma and unimportant words. Sometimes because this data is downloaded, uploaded, at times it contains noise as well in some of the places. So this is basically our framework, our technical framework for doing this. What is the motivation? The motivation generally was that we want to see how the cinema has been evolving. So once we have some knowledge of the types of words, the types of sentiments that's expressed in the cinema in these top movies, because the Oscar nominated movies are usually not that popular. The top 10 blockbusters are the popular movies for the year, right? But sometimes some of those Oscar nominated movies also become popular. We could have done an analysis for the entire movies released every year, but it would be too many movies, and it's a lot of processing, a lot of downloading, curating the data set, a lot of effort is needed. So we needed to start somewhere, and this is how we started. And we have curated the data set in Kaggle, and we are looking at sentiment and abuse. But that data set, a lot of other things can be done with the data set, or other research questions can be asked. So, as I said earlier, we use the NLTK NLP package to look at the data set, process the data set, look at things such as movie length. How's the movie length progressing over time? Like we know from Indian movies, particularly Hindi cinema slash Bollywood, our movie times are average like around 3 hours. But we do have like 5 songs in the movies. It used to be in the 90s and early 2000s. But then if you look at Hollywood, it used to be usually 1.5 to 2 hours. So different type of cinema, different decades, different cultural settings. Due to the cultural settings, these movie timelines are there. So we thought it's important to kind of look at how that is evolving in the Hollywood movie landscape, right? And then if you want to know how abusive the movie is, we need to develop some pre-trained language models and refine them to look at the level of abuse. And we use the Senwave data set because the Senwave data set has 9 sentiments, as Ren explained earlier, collected during COVID 19, and 10,000 tweets, 9 sentiments. And the 10th sentiment was official report, which is kind of dropped from this because that was official report for COVID 19. And the Sen wave datasets enables a multi-level sentiment classification where 2 levels or 3 sentiments can be detected at once from a sentence. And essentially, we are looking at different levels, movie dialogues, which are particularly sentences in a frame. And we want to kind of not only look at the Oscar and the top 10 blockbusters, but those movies, those 1035 movies, 1035 movies, they are also having their own categories such as action, comedy, thriller, and drama. And in IMDb, there are a lot of movies that will have 2 categories, but we took the first category, the category that most associates with the movie. and we look at the time frame, and we're looking at sentiments of use and quantitative analysis. So the first thing is shown in the framework. We were like, okay, over different various time lengths, we kind of look at the changing n-grams. The n-grams are bigrams and trigrams. You can see them as summary statistics for NLP. It kind of gives you an overview of what type of vocabulary is in a document, in a text, or in a movie, in a decade of movie. So we can see that the 2 decades, I mean, we have done it for all the 7 decades, but we are showing some of them here. And for the 2 decades, 50s, and then you have the 70s. So you can see that there are some overlaps of the bigrams. So it's a less let go and yes kind of came on top of each other. Come, wait a minute, kind of a thing, get back, and some other things, hey, hey, come, let go, and the standard things. And in the 90s, we see those things are heavily part of the movies. And we need to also highlight that Hollywood has, which we haven't done in this study, those things, a significant number of movies that are remakes of the movies. And then you have some certain phrases which are very common phrases used in action movies. And this is one of the reasons actually I kind of with this it motivated me, because, and this is why I kind of, when I see movies, I try to read the reviews of movies before spending my 2.5 hour time. Because there's a lot of action movies, particularly I found that the scenes are very repetitive, the dialogues are very repetitive, and over the decades, this is looking at the bigrams and trigrams, these things are uh, kind of obvious. So we use the Senoaven RL dataset and fine tune them. So there were some accuracy problems in fine tuning this dataset, which we have highlighted in the paper. And essentially, there are the BERT models. What they kind of give us is embedding. Basically, the embedding of the words are vector representation, decimal numbers, and that is basically a way to process information from text to, and the information in deep learning models will not be, deep learning models do not process text data directly. They need embedding numerical data, and that is processed. So here's a bar chart. So after the n-grams analysis, we kind of try to see what are some of the common emotions in the movies. And we see that humor is one of the most expressed emotion in the entire data set. And what do you see on the right, this figure here? You see this is a combination, the top. So because it's a multi-level co- um, classification. So you see that the humor is, for example, expressed with the other the other sentiments and how much they are expressed, right? So humor, the most expressed, it is most expressed with annoyed. So you you would have action dialogues in movies, or even sometimes in drama, people in everyday language. Note that it's subtitles from movies. We are just looking at, we're not looking at the entire screenplay of movies. We're not looking at the movie transcription. We have another ongoing project that is looking at movie transcription. So it's just dialogues. So here we have uh, expressions of the other emotions in other parts of the movies, which is action movies, comedy movies, drama, and horror. And we find there's a huge overlap of humor in terms of the percentage wise. But if you see the count, you see that, for example, in the other category, uh, this would be more of the action. There's 200, whereas drama and thriller, horror, they would have less humor. So, but in terms of annoyed and others, they are very similar trends. But some categories you have zero thankfulness, and whereas in others there are more thankfulness. So there's a sentiment polarity analysis of how the Oscar movies are the kind of changing over time with weight. So we see that there's more pessimism with the negative weights overall for the entire time span from 50s to 2020s. But what we see in the average sentiment score for movies for that entire decade, we see that if you compare the blockbusters from the 1950s to what we have now, post 2000, there's a significant decrease in the positive sentiments. And if you see the Oscars, there's a significant increase in the positive sentiments. But I would kind of not take the 2020s too seriously because we just have 4 years, not the whole decade. Whereas here, year 2000 and 2010s, we see that they are a bit lower. So overall, we see some interesting trends, and why these trends are could be due to various reasons. What blockbusters basically means that there has been some studies on what sells those movies, what type of content sells those movies in what era. Like we are looking at the break of the Soviet Union, for example. You have Cold War. All those things kind of coming are usually portrayed in the themes of the Hollywood movies, and those things kind of probably changes the vocabulary of the dialogues and the sentiments expressed. So more on the sentiment, the total words in the movies, right? And then we have the portion of abusive words, and it's pretty interesting. And again, the 2000s and 2010s, we see that these days the number of total words, the movie lengths are generally increasing quite a lot, especially in the blockbusters. You have 3 hour movies these days, and we have average time per movie and average abusive time per movie. So the average time per movie has not really drastically increased that much. Abusive time spent in these movies, sometimes they were lower. In the 1970s, the abusive words were lower and the time associated, so they kind of linked with each other. So this is one of the most interesting plots, and it kind of gives our kind of motivates more work. Is this one is like what we see is post 2000 we have abusive word counts more in the Oscar movies than in the blockbusters, whereas previous to 2010 there were mostly blockbusters that had more abusive words. This kind of shows the shift in the nature of how the Oscar awards are probably given, and it's becoming probably also as well that which we have not done in this analysis, is we have not reported how many of, which we can quite easily report, a trend of how many of those blockbusters are actually becoming Oscar awarded movies. Like, yes, how many of the blockbusters are coming as Oscar nominated movies? Because it's kind of a win-win for the cinema if you have a blockbuster winning Oscar awards. And at times there are movies which are not blockbusters, but after winning an Oscar award, they get more attention and they kind of become more viewed by people. So we're now looking into other things such as the abuse count in the different categories. So we see thriller has kind of dominated in here in the normalized abuse count compared to the other categories, which is interesting. And we have action, which I thought would have more, but it has less when you look at that. But in general, you have, if you compare the Oscar with the blockbusters, we have comedy, uh, abusive content count in comedy is and thriller are much lower than drama and action. And you see that in general, the action blockbusters have the most abusive content count, and drama in um, a blockbuster drama and thrillers have lower in the case of blockbusters. But in Oscars, we have higher for drama and thriller. Um, how do we explain this? Um, it's not something that can be explained that easily. I guess it's more about what movies became what popular at what decade, and the decadal nature is here in this figure. So it's basically putting these two figures together, you get a more detailed perspective of what is happening in Hollywood when it comes to abuse. So it's kind of complicated to kind of really say things at this stage. But what is the take home message is that Oscar awards are having more abuse, at least in the last 20 years. And the other thing is that we see the normalized abuse count more in thriller movies. So the key motivation for me, because there's like when I came up with the idea for cinema theme, there's like I don't know how it happened, but I do spend a lot of time watching movies. And I was like, okay, so there are multiple projects we can deal with. We can deal with multiple things, such as how Hollywood influences Indian cinema, how Indian cinema, especially because there are 14 cinemas, there are cinema houses, slash languages. Then there's also influence from the north and to the south, and vice versa. Uh, the thing is, what kind of motivated me more towards this cinema study was the content, the abuse and the inappropriate content that is out there, especially in OTT over the top platforms such as Prime, Netflix, and my mom is my movie partner. And sometimes when we watch movies, it's like there's some scenes coming, and it's kind of really inappropriate to watch with your parents, with your mom, or with your children. So I was like, if we do this well, we bring the AI to the cinema thing, and we have another ongoing project Rain is doing in his honors, where we just not look at movies, but we also look at transcription. Transcription of movie is basically it's given. It's useful for those who are visually impaired. Those visually impaired, persons, they can basically hear more of words about detailed details about how every scene, what is happening in a scene. So that would give us more details about abuse in the future. But anyways, in this one, we were like, okay, we can use the same model, the height BERT model, and the other models, Sandwave BERT models, to see how the sentiments are kind of changing and the abuse is changed over time. If we can kind of look at the abuse, because beforehand, then it's very easily we can change these abusive terms with some other terms, or block it out completely with the use of AI. And I envision the development of apps, maybe something can spin up from our group as well, where we can kind of eliminate really abusive, racist, and related terms, homophobic terms. And so if you can see that any hall, because it's a comedy drama, you don't have that much abusive words. But you see, this is The Departed, which is action drama, and it's a crime drama movie. And it's one of the best movies. I really like, one of my favorite movies. I really like this one. It's my favorite actors are there. Leonardo DiCaprio is there, and it's a good movie. So try to check it out. But it's full of abusive terms, right? So you have Silence of the Lambs, which is a crime drama, and this, I think both The Departed and Silence of the Lamb and anyhow, all of these three, they were Oscar nominated and they won Oscar awards for Best Picture. I think most of them, or Best Director at least. So we have Chariots of Fire, which is a movie about somebody participating. The protagonist is participating in the Olympic Games, so one of those athletic sports. And it's you can see as the movie is going, the sentiment polarities are there, being very positive over time, from very negative sentiments. And this is because it's a movie about motivation. Whereas Silence of the Lambs, you could see quite negative sentiments, because towards the end it becomes pretty bloody as well. And The Departed is all over the place of some very extreme negative scenes there. So, what are some of the negative sentiments, the abuse levels? This can be, and this is kind of included in our GitHub repository for the project. And we have some examples from some of these movies. So you say you play well, then right away I have to say you play well. So the abuse level is low, and so on. So these are the examples. So this brings us to the end. Basically, uh, we have all these movies we have analyzed, 1035, and we are given a screenshot of some of the details in seeing the movies. And we have this in our GitHub repository. The data has been analyzed, the predictions are there. And we get, in conclusion, a historical perspective on sentiment and abusive trends in Hollywood movie dialogues, where we saw that the Oscars are becoming bit more abusive. We'd like to do more of this, and we can get a better picture in this whole study when we replicate it with movie transcriptions. But it's not so easily available, the transcripts. The other thing which is more easily available probably is the screenplay of the movies, and that will be kind of going another level with the help of LLMs. How do we encode the screenplay? Because the screenplay would give very direct, clear directions of what's going on in the movies, but it's not necessarily that the screenplay of the movie is the exact movie, but at least the dialogues are somewhat close to the screenplay. So we could probably do a bit more on that, get a finer detail of abuse and sentiments, and these sites can help us in content regulation. How do we block movies? How do we filter movies? How do we make movies appropriate for children? And this is really much needed for a safe society. What type of society do we envision? Because the cinema has played a very big role in influencing the society in crime as well. Very violent crime associates with movies. There are a lot of people who are locked up in prison who have been motivated, done very violent and abusive things, and gone to prison because they were motivated by some of these movies. So people, the movie makers make multi-million dollar movies and profits, and people go to prison. But we also need to note that these movies, such as biographical dramas and others, they have been motivating factors in in the positive side of the society, motivated elements of democracy, positive societal changes, brought up good things to light that have been buried over the past. There are some of those Oscar nominated movies and blockbusters have been huge positive things to the society as well. So we have to kind of take the positives with us home and eliminate the negatives, and all this can quite be done with the use of AI. And this is kind of the first study from our group, and there are going to be, of course, hopefully more than a dozen studies and papers coming with PhD and masters from both focusing on Indian cinema, Hollywood, and Chinese cinema. Most of our students are from these cinema houses, countries with these cinema houses, and of course the Australian cinema, which is a smaller subset of the cinema, but a very good one to check out. So I'll leave it to Ren now to give a little bit of an overview of the GitHub repository. Ren?
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Uh, we can see here this document category and this document year because the subtitles are grouped because they have different movie categories. For example, we know action, comedy, thriller, and drama. If you want to do sentiment analysis, you can use this document. And here, this year, they are grouped because we have different years from 1950 to 2024. But in this paper, we use the decade, but from 2020 to 2024, we don't have 10 years, we just have 5 years. So we need to note this part. Okay. And this part is Clifford model and Roberta model. These two documents are the routes of our result sections. You can find our results in these documents.
So just to add to that, we have a lot of more results in here than given in the paper. So
Okay, here I think the most important document is this one, movie information wiki, because without this script, we cannot get the information from internet. We can see this URL. It's website wiki because we can use this script to get the different information from this website. For example, we can know the awards, the years, the director of the films, and also their different categories. So after getting their information, we can do our results section. This one is
all right.
Hayward tree. We use this script to train our Hayward model because Hayward model is a pre-trained model. You need to use real data set or even other data set. We still can use the HX in data set to fine tune our model, and then we use the fine tune model to detect some abusive languages. Okay. And here this here are our results section, but these results are not in our paper. I think we just put some important result in our paper. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Ren. So, thank you, Ren. Thanks, everybody. We just open the floor for some questions and comments. Anybody with any question or comment?
I've got a question. If you still have the slides,
Right.
because it might help for a second. Sorry.
Definitely.
I was
We
just
need
a
to
little
figure.
confused
Yep.
because one of the graphs I saw seemed to suggest that amount of time, abusive time within each movie was like roughly similar decade to decade. So if
So,
we
can you
go,
see my slides now? Yeah.
yes, I can. Yeah, perfect. Further down. Yeah. I think it's this one here, which is that yeah, abusive content, and that's like oh no, that's probability. Do you have the earlier graph? Sorry, just one back. So yeah, so here we kind of see average time per movie seems to be roughly constant on the right. And we were saying like the length of the movie seems to be increasing. So I guess I was confused. That seems like, to me, it seems like it's saying that movies are getting less abusive. But what am I missing about like this graph that has actually led to an increase in abuse?
Yeah. So, if we look at the time for 1990, 2000, and 2010, it's not much difference in the time, right? But 1990, there's a little bit less abusive content compared to 2000s, and then it kind of decreased a bit and increased a bit. So, in the interestingly, the 1960s is seen as the major player, but I think we need to not take this the abusive time
Okay.
really that seriously, because like I am not really sure about this. We need to go back into our code to really
Yeah,
revisit
fair.
how this was calculated, because like if, for example, if few words are seen as abusive, then you would need to go into the time frame of the movie dialogues to say, oh right, in that time frame it was abusive. But sometimes like somebody can say abusive, it is all dependent on how the subtitles are encoded, right?
Yeah.
And it's not really a very I think this figure is something that we in our revision will say that this is not a really key figure, because this other figure is probably better in the abusive words versus total words. I think the
Yeah,
time
okay.
is not a very strong indicator. Yeah. Thanks. And but one thing is quite interesting is that at least in here we get the average time per movie, which is kind of slightly increasing in the 2020s. All right. Any other question or comments?
I'm assuming that the data for 2020 is not as much as the 2010s because it's still
Yeah.
in progress.
So we have 4 years of data for the 2020s. Yeah, and this is post-COVID movies basically. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
So we
Because
have 2020. Yep.
yeah, it makes sense to have this graph till 2010s and
Yeah.
2020s is a separate because it's not a fair comparison because the
Um,
others are all 10-year intervals versus just a 5-year interval.
yeah. I mean, this study kind of really motivates a lot of other things. Firstly, is like how fair are we? So this is a minor fair issue that we can really address. But the
Yeah.
other major fair issue is it could be that I mean, because there's, especially in action movies, there's so much of abuse which is will happen without any dialogues. Like somebody's head is chopped off. There's no dialogue about it. Like nobody commented anything. So that is more of a computer vision approach, and we have a parallel project ongoing, but we couldn't finish it. We have a draft paper already. We are trying to bring the computer vision based pre-trained models, including YOLO and others, to detect violent scenes in advance and tell the level of violence. But that project is very challenging because you need very annotated video scenes of level of violence, which is hard to get. There's some there. The other
Um,
thing is, it's yep.
just on that note, there is this audio transcriptions, the director's commentaries, which I think may be available for some movies.
Less than actually, more useful than that is there is quite a large community of people transcribing movies for visually impaired, like you mentioned
Yep.
earlier.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of it. I guess the fundamental problem with those data sets is like it's done by a volunteer who is almost
Yep.
engaging a little bit in creative work describing what's happening. So it's like quite subjective. I mean, someone's got their head chopped off, but how you describe it could be more inflammatory or less. So
Yeah.
more than subtitles, it's a bit more variable. But anyway, it's available. It's just yeah.
So thanks, Rain. And Rain, you are looking at that, right? So
Yeah.
um, um, like, what's your goal in that project?
So it is something I want to discuss with you more, but I think the goal is mostly, as you alluded to before, identifying gory scenes
Yep.
specifically ahead of time, so that we could, I guess, in the long term, provide some kind of generative AI response to
Yep.
allow people to view that. So maybe covering it up, but for now, the goal is specifically identifying those scenes. Did we lose Rohit?
Yeah, I think we lost him for a bit.
As much as I would happily rabbit on more about my project. um,
Yeah, seems like a very interesting project, man.
Thank you. I am curious, Ren, how did you chunk up the movie transcripts? Because that's something that I'm looking at the moment.
Ren, are you asking Ren?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Oh, he's
Can
back.
you ask the question again? I think Ren had
No, we'll leave it for now. What did you want to say? Sorry, Rohit.
No, so in the future, once we have better language models that could analyze movie scenes or auto trans, so we have currently, like, you in YouTube you could get auto subtitle, right? So but we are a bit long way when a time will come when we have auto transcription of those scenes that do not have the subtitle parts, right? So when that is done, then that would probably help our future projects, like extension of your work.
Can I explain that the two plots, average abusive time?
All right. Okay, then if there are no other comments or questions, anything from Ren? Ren, would you like to add anything?
I want to explain the plots for the average abusive time and the total time.
All right. Yes. Okay. Fine. So Ren did the nitty gritty here. Yes, that's the figure.
We can
How did
see
you do it?
we can see the screen.
Can you see the figure now?
No.
This screen is not showing. You are not
Others?
sharing.
Yeah, we can see
Still
the
no, sorry.
Right. This one.
Yeah. At first, I want to explain this plot. This plot is the number of words. We know that after fine-tuning the Hilbert model, we can use this model to detect the abusive count. And here, if your words, the length of your words is not greater than 512, so we can use the model to detect every word. To be more specific, you can know the abusive words, the number of abusive words. And here in the SRT file, for example, in the subtitles, we can know the total words. So here we know every decade the number of words. And the question is here. You don't know the time of that abusive words. For example, if you say fuck, I don't like it, you can see this sentence in just 10 seconds, or you can see this sentence in just 30 seconds. And in that subtitle files, we have the time steps. So based on the time steps, we can know the average time per movie and the average abusive time per movie. I don't think this, and we can see here, at first it is down and then it's up. Here is also down and up. They have the similar trend. So I think this plot is based on this plot. And it's just some simple calculation.
So Ren, you regenerated and redid the code for this part. So can you verify that that's done and included in the GitHub repository? This figure, the code for the times.
Now I don't have the access to that page. I have some new code. I don't upload the code on that website.
Okay, fine. Right. Okay, fine. We're going to update it next. Okay. Sorry about this. We'll update it in the revision for this paper, the code on the GitHub site, and revisit this figure. Thanks everyone for raising this issue. It's an interesting one, and we look forward to improving the paper further. All right. Thanks everyone. I'll end the session now.